December 8, 2004, Columbus, Ohio, the El Rosa Villa nightclub. Dimebag Darrell Abbott stood on stage, playing guitar in front of 250 fans. His new band, Damage Plan, was only 3 songs into their set when a man in a hockey jersey walked calmly through the crowd, climbed onto the stage, pulled out a 9mm handgun, walked directly up to Dimebag, pressed the gun against his head, and fired. Dimebag fell backward, still holding his guitar. The man kept shooting. 4 people died that night, and the world lost one of the greatest guitar players in metal history. But this story started years before with a breakup so bitter that it destroyed everything Pantera had built. Before we go deeper into this tragedy, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more untold stories from rock history. Pantera was untouchable in the 90s. Cowboys from hell, vulgar display of power far beyond driven. They changed metal forever. Dimebag Darrell and his brother Vinnie Paul Abbott were the heart of the band. Dimebag on guitar, Vinnie on drums. They grew up together in Texas, started playing music together as kids, and built Pantera from nothing into one of the biggest metal bands in the world. They were brothers, best friends, and musical soulmates. Wherever Dimebag went, Vinnie was right there beside him. They were inseparable. But by the early 2000s, cracks were showing. Phil Anselmo, Pantera's singer, was struggling with addiction and chronic pain. He started missing shows. He moved to New Orleans, away from the rest of the band, and tensions exploded. In 2001, Phil did a magazine interview where he said he was done with Pantera. He wanted to focus on his side projects. Dimebag and Vinnie found out about the breakup by reading it in a magazine. They were devastated. Pantera was their life. It was everything they had built together, and Phil had ended it without even talking to them. The breakup turned ugly fast. Phil said things in interviews that hurt Dimebag deeply. He called him names. He mocked him. Dimebag didn't fight back publicly, but those close to him said he was heartbroken. He didn't understand why Phil was attacking him. All he wanted was to keep making music with his brother. But Pantera was over. So Dimebag and Vinnie did the only thing they knew how to do. They started a new band, Damage Plan. It wasn't Pantera, but it was a chance to keep playing together. They poured everything into it. And in 2004, they released their first album and hit the road. Meanwhile, there was a man named Nathan Gale. He was a former Marine who had been discharged for mental health issues. He was obsessed with Pantera. And somewhere in his fractured mind, he became convinced that Pantera had stolen his songs. He believed that Dimebag Darrell specifically had stolen his lyrics, his riffs, his ideas. None of this was true, but Nathan Gale believed it completely. And as Pantera broke up and Phil Anselmo's feud with the Abbott brothers became public, Gale's delusion grew darker. He blamed Dimebag for destroying Pantera. He blamed him for ruining his life. And he decided that Dimebag had to pay. On December 8th, Damage Plan was playing at the El Rosa Villa, a small club in Columbus. It was the kind of venue Dimebag loved, intimate, close to the fans. No barriers between the stage and the crowd. Dimebag thrived in places like this. He would hang out with fans before the show, take pictures, sign autographs, joke around. He was one of the most accessible, down-to-earth rock stars you could ever meet. That night was no different. He was in a great mood. The band hit the stage around 10 p.m. The crowd was pumped. Dimebag launched into the opening riff of their song, Breathing New Life. Everything was perfect. Nathan Gale was in the crowd wearing a hockey jersey and a baseball cap. He wasn't moving. He wasn't headbanging. He was just staring at the stage with a blank expression. And then, 3 songs into the set, he moved. He walked through the crowd like he was in a trance. Nobody stopped him. He climbed onto the stage. Security didn't react fast enough. And before anyone could do anything, he was standing right next to Dimebag. He pulled out a Beretta 9mm handgun, raised it to Dimebag's head, and fired at point-blank range. Dimebag dropped instantly. The music stopped. The crowd didn't understand what was happening at first. Some people thought it was part of the show. But then Gale started shooting into the crowd. Nathan Bray, a fan who tried to help Dimebag, was shot and killed. Jeff Thompson, the band's head of security, rushed the stage and was shot and killed. Aaron Hulk, a club employee, was shot and killed. Vinnie Paul was crouched behind his drum kit, watching his brother bleed out on stage, unable to do anything. Band members and crew were diving for cover. People in the crowd were screaming, running, trampling each other to get out. Gale kept firing. He grabbed a hostage and held the gun to his head. The club was in total chaos. Then Officer James Niggemeyer arrived. He was an off-duty cop working nearby who heard the shots and ran into the club. He saw Gale on stage holding a hostage with a gun to his head. Niggemeyer didn't hesitate. He raised his shotgun and fired a single shot, hitting Gale in the head and killing him instantly. The shooting stopped, but the damage was done. 4 people were dead, 7 others were injured, and Dimebag Darrell Abbott, one of the most beloved guitarists in metal history, was gone. Vinnie Paul never recovered from that night. He barely spoke about it publicly. He gave a few interviews where you could see the pain in his eyes, but he couldn't talk about it without breaking down. Dimebag wasn't just his brother. He was his best friend, his partner, the person he made music with his entire life. And Vinnie had watched him die on stage, powerless to stop it. In the years after Dimebag's death, Vinnie threw himself into music. He formed a new band called Hell Yeah. He kept touring, he kept playing, but people close to him said he was never the same. The light was gone from his eyes. He was carrying a grief so heavy that it crushed him slowly. Vinnie Paul died on June 22, 2018 from heart disease. He was only 54 years old. Some people said he died of a broken heart. That losing Dimebag destroyed him from the inside. At his funeral, he was buried next to his brother in a custom casket shaped like a kiss casket, the same kind Dimebag was buried in. The Abbott brothers were together again, and Pantera's story was finally over. The tragedy of Dimebag's murder goes beyond just the loss of a great musician. It was the loss of innocence in the metal community. Before that night, metal shows felt safe. Dangerous in a fun way, but ultimately safe. Fans and bands were part of the same tribe. But after December 8, 2004, everything changed. Security got tighter. Barriers went up between bands and crowds. The intimacy that Dimebag loved so much became a liability, and a darkness settled over the metal world that never fully lifted. Nathan Gale's motive died with him. We'll never know exactly why he did what he did, but the most common theory is that he blamed Dimebag for Pantera's breakup. He believed the conspiracy that the band stole his songs, and in his twisted mind, murdering Dimebag was justice. The irony is brutal. Dimebag didn't want Pantera to break up. He was heartbroken when it ended. He spent the last years of his life trying to recreate what he lost. And he died because a disturbed man blamed him for something that wasn't his fault. Dimebag Darrell's legacy lives on through his music, through the riffs that defined a generation of metal, through the countless guitarists he inspired, through the stories of fans who met him and said he was the nicest guy in rock. But his death remains one of the darkest moments in music history, a senseless act of violence that took a legend away far too soon, and a reminder that sometimes the real monsters aren't on stage, they're in the crowd. If this story hit you as hard as it hit me, do me a favor. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video, and check out my video on the tragic death of Lane Staley, another legend taken too soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.